Hey guys, it is Tamara. Thank you so much for coming back to my channel. Welcome back. Today is Monday and we're going to be starting a brand new topic. We're going to be talking about trauma-inducing things, okay? And I think that this might be a really good topic for you because what I'm going to highlight are the things that tend to trigger your trauma response, or the things that tend to push you into trauma reactions. So flashbacks and hypervigilance and an inability to sleep and, hyperarousal and hypervigilance and all of those things. So today we're going to be talking about that, but we're going to talk a little bit more about a specific area of trauma-inducing things and situations. And I want to highlight the trauma-inducing environment. And this could be, something you experienced as a child, it could be an adolescent, or it could be something you're dealing with right now. So thank you so much for coming back to my channel. For those who are subscribed and for those who are new, I encourage you to hit the subscribe button so you can stick around with us and continue to be a part of our validating and growing community. We do this Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Well, I do this, and then my subscribers and subscribers that really feel like friends and family, they add and they contribute and they share, and that's what makes this channel great. So I welcome you to subscribe. The benefits for you in today's video is I'm going to highlight some trauma-inducing situations and patterns and characteristics that may actually be making you worse, cause you to regress, or has caused adult PTSD. So when we're thinking about post-traumatic stress disorder, we're actually thinking about a series of physiological and psychological symptoms that keep you stuck, We're thinking about flashbacks and hypervigilance and avoidance of certain stimuli, usually something that reminds you of the traumatic incident. We are talking about memories, sometimes lost memories, amnesia, psychogenic amnesia, and I talk about that in a video that I'm going to post at the end for you. I talked about that last week or the week before. Okay, we're also talking about depression and anxiety, and fluctuating moods and appetites and behaviors, and sometimes this fear response that's triggered when it doesn't need to be triggered. So PTSD, I like to consider it a physiological disorder that has a lot of emotional and psychological pieces to it. Your body goes through fight or flight, your body goes through a shutdown period or a hypervigilant or triggering period, and you're out of control. You have to learn skills that are appropriate so that you can cope with the reactions that your body tends to go through. So when we're thinking about the topic of environments or things that trigger trauma, I want you guys to think about things that have happened to you in your past and things that are happening to you right now that may be triggering the trauma response. And I'm going to give you a listing of a couple of things that I think are major triggers. And the first is an invalidating environment. When you have an invalidating environment, we're talking about, not being supported, not being confirmed, not having anybody say to you, okay, your experience is a normal experience, that what you're going through is appropriate, what you're going through is something that anybody would go through, right? Or having somebody to confirm or validate your own thoughts and your own behaviors and your own feelings about a particular matter. Right? So let's say, for example, you have a very narcissistic and selfish mother. You have a very narcissistic and selfish mother, and she does something to you. You go to your friend or your boss or your coworker and you begin to talk about it. Having an invalidating boss or a friend can actually cause you to regress, because while you're sharing this trauma stuff and these emotions and these thoughts with your boss or coworker or family friend, whoever it may be, if they say something like, oh, you're just overreacting, or, you don't know what you're talking about. Patty would never do that, or why would you ever think that your mom would do that to you? Like, what would she gain from doing that? That's invalidating. It doesn't support you. It doesn't make you feel sane. And that's the scary part. The minute you begin to feel crazy, or the minute you begin to feel invalidated, is the minute that you begin to withdraw and isolate and shut down. And that's what we don't want when you've experienced trauma. So an invalidating environment is the first trauma-inducing situation. Okay? The next is growing up in or trying to function in a passive-aggressive environment, a passive environment, or an aggressive environment. Okay? An aggressive environment would be throwing things and screaming and cursing and yelling and slamming things and property destruction and police coming around, right? Having that kind of environment is an aggressive one, right? Domestic violence. Passive aggressive is slamming doors, huffing and blowing, rolling eyes, doing little small, snarky, smart alecky things, doing things behind your back, turning people against you, ostracizing you. All of those things are passive aggressive. They're aggressive because they are done to hurt you, but they're passive because they're done in an undercurrent, subliminal way. So growing up in an environment that has these two components, aggression and passive aggression, right, can actually cause you to experience PTSD or regress, right? It can cause your PTSD or your trauma history to worsen, the symptoms from your trauma history to worsen, I should say. Okay, so, having a passive aggressive or an aggressive environment is an issue, okay? The next is unpredictability. So not having that balanced foundation, not having somebody that's predictable or an environment that's predictable can actually lead to a regression in your health. It can also lead to PTSD, a worsening PTSD, a more chronic PTSD. Unpredictability is something that an individual with a trauma history does not want to deal with. You have to know what's going to be happening from 1 minute to the next in order to predict how you need to behave, how you need to respond, how you need to view something, how you need to react and behave in something. If it's too unpredictable and you're being thrust into all these various situations that are unpredictable, then you're likely to feel out of control, not very structured, and a little bit confused and perplexed. So having that predictability is important. So not having it can actually induce further trauma, okay? So argumentativeness is another one. Okay, if you're in an environment where there's argumentative people and there's a confrontational kind of tone, you're not going to heal. The last thing an individual with trauma needs to deal with is a person who wants to argue all the time, right? It throws you off. It creates unnecessary anxiety, tension, pain, hurt. Things are said that really should not be said, right? Things are said that you may or may not mean, right? And so it just creates a whole new level of perplexity that you don't need thrust into your situation. So argumentativeness, that can actually regress you, or it can induce your trauma response, okay? The next thing is a calculating, manipulative environment. That's the last thing you need. You don't need someone playing games with you, playing mind games with you, or trying to stir chaos. I talk a lot about triangulation on this channel. If you just scroll through the videos from the past, you'll see them. Triangulation is pulling in more than two people or one or two people and kind of causing everybody to, to go against each other. And somebody plays the victim, somebody plays the rescuer, and somebody plays the persecutor. It's not a good situation. And I'll talk about a little bit more about that too this month. I'll try to fit that in there. But having a calculating, manipulative environment, or people in an environment that's manipulative and calculating, unhealthy to say the least, okay? The next is an environment that isn't peaceful. It's an environment that is always traumatic, it's always upset, it's always chaotic, it's always dramatic, right? There's no peace. If you have individuals in an environment where, you need to rest, but they're histrionic, or, they have BPD, so they misinterpret things sometimes, or they're narcissistic and they just want the attention or the power and the control, you need to get rid of those individuals. They're not healthy for you. So being in an environment that's not peaceful, that's not settled, that's not structured or balanced, can actually trigger PTSD, or it can regress you, okay? And last but not least would be severe mental illness. I often speak with families through the National Alliance on Mental Illness about severe mental illness, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder that includes psychosis, other severe mental illnesses out there, right? Psychosis that has nothing to do with, substance abuse, but it's organic, those kind of things, strong delusions, hallucinations, thought disturbance, those kind of mental illnesses. If you're in an environment with somebody like that, they're likely going to trigger you because they are labile, they are fluctuating in their moods. There's no stability, there's no constant. There's always a roller coaster or up and down kind of a response and reaction to life. So all of these things, guys, are not healthy. And if you're in an environment with any of these characteristics, I encourage you to get out of it, or I encourage you to encourage the next person who's in it to get out. You're not going to heal from trauma in these kind of settings. Thank you so much for being with me today, guys, in this video. I encourage you to give it a thumbs up if it was helpful, and go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you can stick around with us, and hit that bell button, because every time I post a video, that bell button is going to let you know that I have posted a new video, and so that way you can stay on track with us. We're going to talk a little bit more about this in the days coming up, and in March, I'm going to be planning for a live YouTube video, so stay tuned for the details on that. All right, I'll see you Wednesday. Bye.